Making this video is without doubt the hardest thing I've ever undertaken, and that's mainly due to the information and the impact this information, this revelation, is going to have on every person, on every paradigm, on every country and peoples around the world. What I've rediscovered over the last 2.5–3 years is that man has a hidden higher function which has been intentionally suppressed through various means and methods over the ages and aeons. Now I'm going to call this higher function cold fusion. If you think of a car as a metaphor for the vehicle or the flesh, a car currently, or the vast majority of them, run a combustion engine. Fuel goes in, and through an exothermic process, energy's derived, momentum's derived, but sadly those engines are only 20 to 30% efficient at best, which means there's 70% plus waste, whether it be heat, noise, pollution, or whatever byproduct. So that's grossly inefficient. Now if you think of us currently running, or the vast majority, if not all, are currently running as a combustion engine, which means we have always been made to believe and indoctrinated that we need food or matter to sustain a healthy living body. Well, I disagree, and I think this is one of the greatest conspiracies right now. And I'm not here for a sensational soundbite, or I'm not here to tell you my theories. I am living proof that this higher function is possible. I've tried and tested it, and tried and tested it, and experimented with it over the last 2 years to make sure through scientific method that it wasn't, say, a mental episode. If something's repeatable, then it's tangible, isn't it? It can be demonstrated to people. Now, this is what this series of videos and channel is ultimately designed to achieve, is a return to Christ and evolution past the flesh. Now, this is going to be a step-by-step video, and I've got a lot of information to impart, because when you do run cold fusion, you're going to realize where that 90% of redundant grey matter, you're going to start using a higher percentage of that. You're going to become a lot more aware of the world and how it works around you, and you're going to get downloaded with a lot of information. In fact, you're going to know for the first time in your life what it means to be clever. Now, there's other higher functions available with cold fusion, and the main reason of this revelation is, imagine if we didn't have to eat. Imagine if we didn't have to grow old. No death, no suffering, no pain, no the frailties of the flesh. For me, the flesh is and always will be a divine instrument, but also the original beast system. Can the spirit overcome the temptations and lusts of the flesh, the carnal delights, whether or not that's fornication, alcohol, gambling, substance abuse? There's many ways to distract you, to lure you into the temptations of the flesh, to make you think you are the flesh and nothing more. Well, the flesh is a vehicle. That's why I use the car as the original metaphor. It's a vehicle for the spirit, and it's designed to experience a multitude of realities which ultimately empower and enlighten the spirit. Now, the whole point of the original beast system was for man to beat the beast, to overcome the flesh and escape the fourth dimension, or cube. Now, this is what it means to be truly sovereign. It means to take your time base back on a quantum level. Now, it's my first video, so I apologize if it's a little bit incoherent, but also it's my second day of a fast. Now the first step to running cold fusion is to prepare for a fast. Now the best way to prepare for a fast, in my opinion, is to flush your system out with water for at least a week before. And I'd also suggest salt baths, whether that's Epsom salts, Rochelle salts, Himalayan salts, because they help sort of detox and remove metals. I'd also suggest a sauna after exercise, things like that. Flush your vehicle out before you attempt to fast. Now if you've never fasted before, obviously just don't rush into it. You know, maybe fast for one day, like the Muslims do at Ramadan. Maybe just fast during the day and have a little something to eat at sundown. Now the more you do this, the more you're going to be able to control the pangs of hunger and the little voices telling you to eat, you need to eat. Well, you don't need to eat, and I'm here to tell you, you need nothing from this world. And the only thing that's important right now is you evolving out of this perfect hierarchy of slavery. And when I say perfect hierarchy of slavery, we're going to talk about worst case scenarios in a later video. But to give you a reality check, just to sort of tell you where we are right now, look around you. It doesn't matter who you are or where we're from. We ultimately know there's something very, very wrong, something deeply unsettling about the world that's presented to us. And thankfully, you know, we will just play the cards that are dealt to us. We will just crack on with the world presented to us, very much like the Truman Show quote, which is people accept the reality they're presented with, and you just make the most of that. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's one of the qualities and virtues of man. But this conspiracy I'm talking about cannot be unsaid. Now, talk is cheap. We all know that, and it's very easy to come out with a sensational soundbite or an angle on YouTube to get hits, to get subscribers, to get attention. Well, seeing is believing. Now the reason I'm in a day 2 of a fast is I'm going to do a 40-day fast. And my inspiration for the 40-day fast is obviously Christ. But also 1,000 years ago there was a movement in the south of France called the Cathars. Now if you're not familiar with Cathars or Catharism, I strongly advise you do a lot of research into the Cathars, because of all the examples in history, this is the only one I could find where Christianity thrived and was practiced in the truest sense of the word. Now, to be in Christ has been hidden. It's been convoluted and hidden. Obviously, those with eyes to see can see it in Scripture, but it's very well hidden. And the reason it's hidden, imagine if you could live for free. Imagine if you didn't need anything external. Well, the paradigm we're presented with, the world would implode overnight. So now I'm trying to make you realize the gravity, the serious nature of what I'm saying now, because this isn't life. What we've been told is life is in fact a scam. And how the scam works is they make those in first death believe they're alive. Now, this is going to be a shock to a lot of people, and I'm sorry to break it to you in such an uncouth and direct manner, but you are dead, and I am dead, and this is first death. And to give you an insight into a worst case scenario, we are in a fractal franchise of first death, like a McDonald's. Now, you realise why maybe higher interests and divinity got involved, because the business model is wicked, unhinged and out of control. So my advice to you is to follow this series of videos and channel to take a step-by-step foolproof guide back to true sovereignty, thus Christ and Christ consciousness. Now, returning to cold fusion, fasting is a huge element, because what you eat of this world ultimately keeps you here, doesn't it? It's matter. And firstly, because of the heinous nature of the reality we're in, you don't know what you're eating. It might look like a steak, it might look like something, but it isn't what you think it is. It's most probably reatomized dead people or cardboard. Now, what I'm saying is a lot to take in on a first opening gambit, but you have to realize how serious this situation is. Now, a lot of people like myself have returned vigorously with a vengeance back to faith, and whatever your belief system is I'm not here to belittle or cheapen that, because there is truth in all scripture and belief systems, and only a very clever man would realize that if you just stick to one doctrine, you're not going to get the whole picture. That's why there's 1,000 names for he who dwells most high, or God, or a creator, the supreme being, however you want to articulate that. And the same goes for Christ. There has been many expressions of the same sacred deity, whether or not it's a prophet or a son or daughter of God. There has been many names and expressions, you know, say from the Persian Mithra to the Hindu Krishna. There's different names for Christ. We've got Jesus, we've got Yeshua, we've got Yahweh, and we've got Jupiter. Now, there's all expressions of the same deity. Now, my greatest evidence for that Christ is real and not just a superstition or a method to control or extrapolate money as a business model is the fact that if you watch any movie or turn the TV on, or even just nip down to the pub or in general conversation, how many times is Christ's name mentioned in a derogatory fashion? We're talking about a scientific precision, attention to detail when it comes to blasphemy. Now, I could be wrong, but why would you ingrain this blasphemy in almost every caveat of life, where it's almost second nature to use the Lord's name in vain? Now, if you do this with any other deity, as we found out in Paris, it doesn't end too well, because they don't like it when you blaspheme and mock a prophet or someone sacred to their belief system. But for some reason, it's just willingly embraced. It's commonplace when it comes to Christ. Now, the reason Christ is hated is because he's given you a get out of fractal franchised hell card. Now, all you have to do is take that card. Now, the first step echoes the path of Christ. Remember, Christ went to see the Baptist, John the Baptist. Saint John the Eagle Baptist was running cold fusion, hence the water baptism. So Christ had to go and see the Baptist to be baptized, i.e. to run cold fusion, before he could pursue the rest of his path, divine work and destiny. So the first step of returning to Christ is running cold fusion. Now, just to give you a little bit more as a metaphor, say a combustion engines, yeah, they're pretty good. A Bugatti, you'll get 250 out of it, won't you? 0 to 60, 3 miles per hour. Now, what I'm saying is the leap you're going to make in terms of function, in terms of capacity, in terms of performance, is like going from a moped to a Batmobile. Now, I want you just to take a moment to let that sink in. So not only are you going to be able to run for free, a divine instrument, you're going to be able to live for free. You're going to be able to have intelligence you can't even imagine. You can't imagine. You're going to know what it means to be clever. See, you're going to heighten senses. You're going to have awareness of realms, dimensions that previously were not even considered. You weren't aware. So your awareness, your awareness is going to expand exponentially. Now, it sounds great, doesn't it? Is there a catch? Well, yeah, I think there maybe is a catch. I don't know, and I hope we all can, but I don't know if we all can run cold fusion. So this is why I'm putting this video out there. Now, if we can't all run cold fusion, is there another way? And yes, there is. I'm here to tell you that there is. You're going to have to fast for the full 40 days. Regardless of who, what you are, there is still a way out. Just as the Cathars used to fast for 40 days 3 times a year. The parfaits or perfects, we're running cold fusion. That means the glowing. So when you're running cold fusion, instead of the matrix stealing energy from you, you're going to reverse the energy flow, and you're going to start taking energy out of this realm. Now, that's going to come with a lot of negative attention, and I'm going to explain my experiences when I started running cold fusion, and yet very serious, life-threatening, dangerous situations, because it turns out the free energy device is you. Now, when you make this conversion to cold fusion, the most important component or element that you need to convert is living water. Now, living water is without doubt the most precious commodity in a first death fractal franchise, and that's because of the sheer volume of nuclear detonations, which are about 2,000 plus. Now, we're going to get into inversion of the Holy Trinity, the antimatter cycle, the birth of death, or the upside down in a later offering. But there is a way, quite simply, for you to create living water at home. Now, there's a lot of resources out there. Living Energies is a work by Callum Coates, and there's YouTube videos on that, and I strongly urge you to imbibe. But mainly his work is an understanding of Victor Schauberger, who was known as the Austrian water wizard, who realised that due to the way water likes to move centrifugally in spirals, in a helix, is a way to energise and make the water living. But I'm going to suggest a 3-stage process, really, just to make sure. Now, osmosis is paramount to splitting the water over and over again, because you need to get that sort of water molecule as small as possible, because that's the only way you're going to be able to get into the nooks and crannies of your divine instrument to take all the parasites and metals and plastics out of your divine instrument. Because remember, for a divine instrument to make music, it's got to be in tune. Now, I would also say, so buy an osmosis machine, but don't waste the acidic component. The secret is putting the water back together again and spinning it using the knowledge that Victor Schauberger imparted. But let's talk about Massimo Emoto, because water is the greatest supercomputer in the universe, hence why we're made up of 70% of it. So Massimo Emoto, if you don't know, realize that there is the sensitivity of water to emotion, to words, to vibration. Now, please, you've got to research this wonderful Japanese gentleman who has endeavored to try and help us from servitude and slavery. Now, the second part I would also say is there's a chap from America, Real Verbs, who uses magnets and things like that to either decluster or structure the water. Now, I want you to come to your own conclusions, because although I'm going to guide you there, it does require like a two-way gate. You're going to have to put a little bit of sort of time, energy and devotion if you want to get out of this nightmare scenario, this worst case scenario. Now, what you do is when you fast, you're going to realize that after about 3 days, no waste comes out. So let's think about a divine creator. You know, would you create something that leaves a mess after itself? Surely before man was even on the drawing board, before the schematics were completed, this must have been considered and thought about. Because when we talk about the cleverness that surrounds us, even the beast system, even the fractal nightmare we find ourselves ensnared upon, now this is clever, but he who dwells most high is off the charts clever, and there is a divine interest who loves us very much. It might be hard to understand that sometimes when we turn the news on, but you're in a fear factory. You know, there's professional fearmongers on YouTube, you know, I wish I had a penny for every one. And you go back to it because you like it, and that's not even to mention the current mainstream media, which is just one big fear factory. Keep you afraid of everything simultaneously, because fear keeps you suppressed. It keeps you in the lower chakras, in the beast. Now the key to unlocking your high cerebral function is the heart. So don't let this world make you cold. And it's designed to make you cold. It's designed to expose you to sin after sin, so you become numb, like paralysis by analysis. It's designed to turn you in to a dead robot without any life, without any hope and inspiration. And they're very, very, very good at it. Hence why the business model is out of control, and divine interests have to make sacrifices beyond your comprehension to try and save this divine instrument called man. Now, the next step after you run cold fusion, because when you run cold fusion, everything I'm saying to you, you're going to experience firsthand. Now, that's less than a week away. So I'm going to take you step by step, and you might even see me transform live on camera. You're going to see me start glowing. Now, when you realize I start glowing, you're going to see this, that you're going to instantly know there's veracity to what I'm saying. Now, if you can't run cold fusion, don't give up. The old man's still giving you a way out, and that way out is a 40-day fast. Now, if you're frightened by a day's fast, or 3-day fast, or a 7-day fast, this isn't for you, and this isn't for everyone. Because the only thing I'm interested in, and the only thing that should be of any real interest in a fake world, is that St. Peter calls your name at judgment. Now, if you look at the UK, it's an unusual shaped country, isn't it? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what this country is shaped after. It's shaped after St. Peter riding a pig. So St. Peter is in fact a rabbit. Now, very difficult to, you know, that's why, have you noticed Peter Rabbits come out of the cinema now? Now, the first step is cold fusion. Now, I'm going to show you how to run cold fusion in real time live, and once I'm running cold fusion, I'm going to go public. But there's another step after running cold fusion, and that's going 4D, leaving the flesh behind. Now, what I'm saying is real, right? You're going to metamorphosize out of this flesh, and you're going to leave. You're going to become a fourth dimensional entity. Now, it's not about me. I am nothing more than a conduit of divine information that through the grace, patience, and decency of the elect and he who dwells most high, I've been privileged to understand, and I know much, much more, but I don't want to overwhelm you with this first video. I want you to be able to think like me. I want you to reach that plateau where we are all equal. Now, when you're running cold fusion, we're all equal, and we're going to be able to communicate beyond words. Now, when we get 2 or more people in cold fusion, we're going to be able to perform miracles, real miracles, even in this dead franchise. We're going to be able to perform miracles, and we're going to be able to do that on television live. So when people start seeing miracles performed by 2 or 3 people in cold fusion, then all of a sudden, are you going to go to work? Are you going to carry on with your humdrum lives? Because you're going to realize that there's a higher function that's always been hidden from us. Now, we'll talk about 4D when you're running cold fusion. Now, we're coming up to St. George's Day in England, which is the 23rd of April, which is when St. George slayed the dragon. Now, this is a clever metaphor. In some circles, it could be described as the first infinity motor, but we'll save infinity motors for later series. Now, it's a battle between the spirit and the flesh, with St. George representing the spirit and the dragon representing the temptations of the flesh. Now, does one always have to win? Does George either have to slay the dragon, or does the dragon have to slay George? Well, imagine if there's a third scenario. And this leads us on to the great work of the ages. Imagine if George and the dragon just have a chat, and George rides the dragon out of here. Now, this is a third option that's never been presented to us. So when we talk about antimatter cycles and matter cycles, which we're going to get into in enormous detail on a second offering, which is, well, you're going to understand, because I'm going to use films. I'm going to use television programs to articulate my message, because it's all out there, and anyone knows that they put far much more truth in so-called fiction, television and movies than you'll ever get in the mainstream media or university. So I'm going to use it as a perfect middle ground so people from all walks of life can see how hidden narratives have been put clearly in front of your face. You just need someone to explain that angle of perception. Now, what I'm talking about is fantastic. I realise it's maybe a very jagged little pill to swallow, to realise that you are dead. So this is the crux of the scam. Make the dead think they're alive. Well, we know Christ is a living God, and the only way you're ever going to get real is by returning to cold fusion, because for the first time in your life, you're going to live. You're going to know what it means to be alive. Now, I've waffled on and I've babbled on like a babbling brook. But this is my first video, and hopefully the production value and the message will become a lot clearer. So my message to you, if you are serious about escaping this worst case scenario, I would strongly urge you to start preparing for a fast and tune in to my future videos and content to understand how my journey's going. And as I get closer to spirit, I'm going to get a lot more articulate and coherent, and I'm going to be able to speak in a way that all understands. Now, before we get carried away about going 4D and interstellar, which ultimately was man's destiny, which was being kept from us, you need to run cold fusion. The only important thing now is you preparing for a fast, fasting, drinking living water, and thus converting to cold fusion. That's the only thing that matters right now. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about water, but this is my first video, and I hope it's been of interest. Like, I don't want any money. This isn't about monetization. It's not about Patreon. You know, there's two ways to spell profit, as there is two ways to spell prey, and they both have very different connotations indeed. Now, it's time to get real, and in a world of fakery, in a completely phony time base, that's going to be the hardest thing you ever do. You're going to get a lot of heat when you try and leave this world and this matrix behind. So be ready for that, because any of those who are familiar with, say, gang stalking or gaslighting through very sophisticated technology, they're coming for you. They're going to do whatever it takes to stop your soul escaping this soul prison. Now, I'm going to try and cap this to 30 minutes. But what I'm going to use as a quirky soundbite now, I'm going to paraphrase Neil Armstrong when we went to the moon in a flying phallus. Now, I'm telling you now, we never needed a spacecraft, a UFO. You see, this divine instrument is the greatest supercomputer, it's the greatest car, it's the greatest machine. And when you realize what you're capable of, we never needed anything here. We don't need robots. We don't need technology. All we need is a glass of living water to convert from the combustion, slavery shitbots, pardon my French, to a clean, higher functioning, cold fusion divine instrument. Is there anything greater on the internet or in the world right now? You need nothing here. So go back to Neil Armstrong's quote. Well, my quote's going to be this: one quantum step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Now, I hope this has been of interest. I apologise if I've waffled on, but your first video is ultimately the hardest one you ever do, and the serious nature of the claims, of the sensational, outrageous claims I'm making, need to be proved, and they're going to be proved live on camera. And what's more than that, I'm going to show you how to metamorphosize out the flesh and go 4D like Christ in the Turin Shroud. Now, if that's not the most exciting and inspirational message of hope ever, well, I don't know what else to say. But like I say, I'm going to nip this in the bud now. Who I am, we'll get to a later date, and I will explain more about how I rediscovered this ancient, sacred, divine function of man. Now I'm going to thank you. The most I want from you is A, I hope you're still watching. B, I would ideally like you to share this to as many people as possible, because I want you to fast with me. I want you to come on this journey, because you're going to soon realize when you run Cold Fusion, you're going to get the answers for yourself. You're going to become aware of the Jurassic Tron business model that's been, you know, implemented around us. This is nothing but cold, hard, dead business. Well, I thank you for your patience and consideration. And like I say, seeing is believing. But what's better than seeing is living that reality, experiencing it firsthand. So I implore you to come on a journey with me, and that journey involves fasting. I'm going to show you how I'm going to make living water in more detail in my second video, because it is the most important component after fasting to return to this divine, higher, clean function. Once again, thank you for your time. Please like, subscribe, more importantly share. Let's get this message out there, because I am going to go public. And when I say public, I mean every television channel, every radio station. You know, this message is getting out there now, because we're not playing War Pigs anymore. We're not doing the Blade Runner timeline. Man's destiny, man's divine potential has been stolen. Our entire timeline is an inverted, perfected mockery of everything creation should be. And you're going to find this out for yourself when you come on the most wonderful journey, a return to true sovereignty. Thank you.